Next, race war is inevitable. In fact, it's already happening. The only difference between now and later is the government being able to maintain order, as bad as that order is. And then we have 2 questions for David. David, so we need immediate solutions for every problem regressives created with their multicultural madness, or else we become third world nations. And one more for David. If David and his ilk don't think ethno-nationalism is going anywhere, why are they so fucking worried about the alt-right?
Okay, so I think I'll answer that first question, that last question first, because I think it's the more important one, and the reason why I think it's the reason why I'm basically doing this and why I'm here.
Sure.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I don't really think the alt-right is going to achieve anything. If ethno-nationalism or fascism or whatever you want to call it is going to rise again, it's not going to be via the alt-right. It's going to be by whoever succeeds the alt-right, as far as I'm concerned. Whoever succeeds the Richard Spencers and the Millennial Woes and the Jared Taylors of the world. And as far as I'm concerned, at the moment, the alt-right is... I think is causing some significant harm to the political the sort of political discourse, and I think it's in a lot of cases it's turning young men into very dangerous people, and like I've said already, it's creating terrorists, as far as I am concerned, and it's not just that the alt-right is it's not just like the people like Richard Spencer. I don't think you, Richard, are necessarily grooming people to violence, but people around you are. Like, for example, Millennial Woes has stated before that violence is on the way, and that we're not going to, and that if you believe in peace, in ethno-nationalism, but you only want to achieve it peacefully, then you are not an ethno-nationalist. He has said this publicly. He's taken the video down now, but that is one of his public statements that he said to thousands of people. And he's not the only one. Now, when someone hears this, when a group hears this, that is going to be some seriously that's going to be some seriously scary stuff. When people are thinking that they are that an army of migrants is coming to rape them, that the race war is going to happen, like the other super chat said, like the race war is already happening. That guy already thinks there's a war happening. Do you think he's? How long do you reckon it's going to take for him to take up arms against whoever he thinks the war is against? This is terrifying. This is really.
Someone sent a super chat, by the way, just now. They said, "I have my sword. BRB starting race war." Go ahead. I'm just reading.
Yeah. And like, as far as I'm concerned, like, Richard, you might want a peaceful transition of ethno-nationalism, but what guarantee do you have that your side, that your group of ethno-nationalists who are all okay with peace, how do you guarantee that your peaceful side is the one that's actually going to achieve the ethno-state, rather than the people who want to achieve it violently, who want to achieve it quicker?
Well, let me address
right, can I
this.
just...
Oh, we have a visitor.
Richard, before you do that, yeah, okay. Can I just defend?
Sure, because you were called out by name there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, right. This was like a year and a half ago now, and that video, I did take it down initially because I thought, oh, people are misinterpreting it, but it's back up now. It's called peaceful ethno-nationalism, and I was certainly not advocating violence. What I was saying was, well, 2 different things. First, violence is on the way in Europe. That is simply a fact. I think it's a fact. I think that civil war is coming. Civil unrest is coming, which I think will devolve into civil war. And then the other thing I was saying was that I think that the resolution to that will be sure, but I don't think it's going to be individuals taking it upon themselves to do vigilante action and, you know, whatever, harm individuals. I think it will be largely state violence, actually, in order to regain control of the situation. So when I said, I can't remember the exact words I used, it was something like, if you only want to achieve ethno-nationalism peacefully, then you're not going to get what you want. That's what I meant. I mean, of course,
you did
I
say
think we can incentivize. Sorry?
You did say that what I said on stream was a direct quote from your video.
I don't know what stream you're talking about, but the video's there.
Oh, this stream here, the one I just said earlier. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But really, I think.
All right. Well, I want to clarify. I am not an advocate of violence.
Look, I think Millennial Woes speaks with my voice on this, and it's a very complicated matter. First off, I agree that violence is coming, and that the ongoing immigration crisis and refugee crisis, invasion crisis, whatever you want to call it, is creating violence. But then I would also say this: I recognize the violence within history making itself. I understand that politics is an inherently violent way of being. One can't think politically, can't seriously think about politics if one only talks about, public schooling and health insurance or something. Politics is fundamentally about who controls a monopoly of violence on a territory, who is sovereign, is he who can confront other states in a potentially violent manner using a military. So I am not a Pollyanna when I think about what the world is going to be. Also, I am willing to use the state on behalf of my people's flourishing and future. There is no question about that whatsoever. Every other group is willing to say this. I mean, Islam, do you think they'll have any compunction to use the state in order to promote Islam? Of course not. So the fact is, we have to recognize that fact. And as Machiavelli understood, we might have to be a little bit evil in order to prevent a greater evil. And that's the tragedy of existence. That's the tragedy of politics itself. But I recognize these things. Vigilante violence, the Dylan Roof types, the so on. This is just massively demoralizing and massively counterproductive. It's not just immoral. It's not just a crime. It's a mistake.
Yeah. Well, real quick here, I'm going to let Woes respond. I'm going to read a couple of these comments. Someone said, Woes jumping in like The Shining came in with an axe through the wall. He definitely had a great.
Well, I just thought it would be better if I defended myself rather than other people have to second guess my words. So that's why I came in.
Yeah,
but I won't stay because this is really between.
Sorry, David. Yeah, we're not.
Well,
we're
unless
not
you
trying
want
to.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Team up on you, but you did name his name. Is it okay if Woes maybe sticks around, David? Is that fine?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, cool. Let me read two more of these. Someone said, by arguing that the ethno-state is not happening fast enough, David implicitly has accepted it's the right thing to do if it could only happen faster. That's a good point.
No, I'm accepting for the sake of argument. If it were a good thing, then you're running out of time to do it. So what is your solution for that? I'm sort of arguing from your perspective. I'm sort of taking a for the sake of argument perspective.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll let you expand on that. And then last comment here, someone said, if you take away the means of protest from people, the only thing left is violence. JFK said that. He didn't endorse violence, and neither did Woes.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
So,
thank you, JFK.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree with that.
Okay, cool. Well, David, you want to pick up from there?
Yeah. Well, the problem is these apocalyptic narratives where you sort of say violence is inevitable, so we need to maybe get ready for civil war to be prepared for to prevent more violence if we just arm ourselves and protect ourselves from the Muslim invaders. That's often the kind of thing that ends up starting the violence in the first place. Apocalyptic narratives.
Well, the violence has already started, David. But David, the violence has already started, and it wasn't us who started it. Muslims are already doing this. They're torching their own ghettos in Sweden, and I believe in Paris and Germany as well. They're raping white women. I mean, I think that's violence. And I also think it's the start of the civil war.
Okay, migrant crime is. I'm not going to say migrant crime isn't a problem, but migrant crime is not an act of war. This is not some kind of state coming to you.
It kind of is, actually. I think you need to understand it. I mean, do you think that the 9/11 terror event was the equivalent of a car accident or a gas main explosion?
No, but that was a specific.
It was a political event.
Yeah, that was organized by Al Qaeda.
So was the equally political are the rapes of German women on New Year's in Cologne, literally in the shadow of that amazing medieval Christian cathedral. These aren't just random acts of violence, and they certainly aren't accidents or so on. They are actually deeply identitarian and political. Those rapes weren't just, I agree kind of with feminists in a weird way, they weren't just about sex. And they weren't just about drugs and alcohol and all that kind of stuff. It was political in the sense that it was an act of conquest. And after every war involves men crossing borders, entering the capital cities of foreign nations, and they end, sadly, I have to say, in the rape of women as a final symbolic, demoralizing act of conquest. And that is exactly what we saw in the immigrant invasion experience of 2015 and 2016. It ended with rape, just as the Second World War ended with rape, just as every other war has ended in rape.
Okay, so because some migrants are rapists, that means this is an act of war.
Let me briefly say this. I think that it would be a big mistake to see all of this in isolation, the sort of standard progressive thing, which is just, well, it's just another isolated case. It's just another lone wolf, when obviously there is a pattern emerging, and as the pattern emerges, as the skeleton emerges, the flesh and the meat will also emerge to accommodate it. I think that, in other words, as their morale will strengthen, their momentum will increase. I mean, this is just human nature, and it's group dynamics. This is what I think it's very naive to say. Well, it's just a few.
I'm not saying it's
just a few 10 years ago. Now it's more, and it's going to be more and more and more. When I see it's inevitability.
Yeah, and the best thing we can do is deal with the criminals, deal with the actual criminals, and integrate the actual upstanding citizens. You do realize this is still a minority of the actual migrants coming in who are committing these crimes and actually committing all of these horrible acts.
Two examples. The guy who did the plan attack, he hid in a Muslim ghetto in Brussels. I've forgotten the name of it now.
Molenbeek.
That's it, yes.
Okay.
And apparently the whole community knew that it was him.
Yeah, they hit him.
But you've got to count everyone in that community you've got to count everyone in that community as an accessory to terrorism, since they knew who he was, common knowledge.
This is the worst case scenario. This is the most extreme example you can give.
That's the first one that came to mind. I'm sure there are many others.
We should only give you mediocre, unconvincing examples to bolster our case.
No, of course not. No, of course not. But I'm saying this is the most extreme case. This is not something that's common. And Molenbeek is a case
we don't know
of
how common it is.
Failure. And this is a failure to actually properly integrate. And to an extent, it is a problem with sort of neoliberal racial identity politics and all of that stuff. There is an issue with being a bit soft on Islam, shall we say, and being a bit soft on criticizing.
Yeah, but it's also an issue of them.
Oh yeah,
but it's also an issue of them themselves, because they are adhering to ancestral identity because it means safety and security and familiarity. So of course they're going to do that. Then the other example I was going to give you was Rotherham, where it was common knowledge what was going on, and yet it went on and on. There were a few whistleblowers within the Muslim community, but just a tiny number, nowhere near enough to actually stop it from going on. So again, I would say if that's going on now, and the numbers of them are increasing all the time throughout Europe, how are you going to integrate them? How are you going to stop them from doing this?
Well, we got to find. I don't think the idea is to start movements saying "get out, to all of the actual decent migrants. What we need to do is we need to understand that there are whistleblowers within these communities, and there are people who do want to speak out against this, and we've got to make sure that these movements don't try and hide in these enclaves. The worst case scenario is when the peoples start living
so optimistic,
separating.
I sort of like the get out idea. I think that sounds like a pretty decent plan there. But real quick,
it's a decent plan. But how are you going to achieve it?
Oh no, I'm joking.
You don't have the policies.
I'm gonna read a couple super chats we have here. And the first one said David has done miles better than Sargon. Props.
Let me second that. Actually, in David's defense, he's actually addressed what I'm saying. He has not just purposefully derailed the conversation or gone into absurdities. So this has actually been a conversation. Well, Sargon, that could get very frustrating, to be honest.